Hello and welcome back to the show. For the next couple of months, I will be using this platform to allow viewers to get to know and interact with our 2020 political candidates, as well as discussing the current social issues. In order for us to make the change that we want to see in this world, we have to be educated and politically active. On the Hagir show, we are trying to do our part to raise awareness. And today we have with us Deb Ciamacca. She is running for the state representative in the 168th district, and that is located in Delaware. So to all our Delaware County listeners, please tune in, listen to the end, and ask your questions, comment, or suggestion. And without further ado, hello, Deb, and thank you for giving us the time. Can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and let them know a little bit about you?
Thanks, Hagir. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Deb Ciamacca, and as you said, I'm running in the 168th district, which is Media, which is the county seat, Upper Providence, Newtown Square, Middletown, Chester Heights, Edgemont, and Thornbury, and a little bit of Marple Township. And this district is a Republican district right now. It's actually never had a Democratic representative, and it's never had a woman representative either. And so there would be a lot of firsts here if I happen to win this seat. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a former high school social studies teacher. I taught for 20 years up at Conestoga High School. I taught government and politics, and I taught economics and world cultures and world history and a number of other different subjects. And before that, I was in business. I worked in manufacturing at several different companies, including Neutronics, which is a family-owned electronics and instrumentation company in Exton. And before that, I was a Marine Corps officer. Eventually, I got to the rank of captain and proudly served my country for 5 years. And the reason I'm running is that there's just so many reasons I'm running. But one major reason I'm running is that as a teacher, I always talked about politics and current events in my classroom. And the day after the Parkland shooting, I was talking about what had happened there. And if you remember, 17 students and staff were killed at Parkland. And obviously my students were distraught, and I was distraught about what had happened. And I was talking about this terrible tragedy, and one of my students raised her hand and said, "Mrs. Ciamacca, why is it that we always care about the Second Amendment and Second Amendment rights, but no one cares about our right to live in this classroom without anyone taking a shot at us?" And it's one of those questions as a teacher that really hit me, and I realized that she was right, that this was something that we really were not doing. We're really not speaking up about protecting kids in the classroom.
Yeah.
And so, I realized I needed to do something. So I started organizing teachers to enact common sense gun reform. I was on Twitter organizing them when a reporter from Time magazine saw what I was doing and interviewed me and asked me to write an editorial on this issue. And so I wrote an editorial for Time magazine, and it went viral. And I started speaking out on this issue on CBS, Comedy Central. I spoke at the March for Our Lives rally. I spoke on the BBC, and I really thought that I had done enough. But I was showing a movie in my classroom called Virginia 12th, which is about one of my students, Chris Hurst.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the viewers may have heard of Chris Hurst. He was in Virginia as an anchor at a TV station, and his fiance, who was a reporter there, was murdered on live TV. A disgruntled employee at the station came and killed her while she was doing an interview.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris decided to quit his job as an anchor person and run for state representative in the most conservative district in Virginia. And so I'm watching this movie about one of my former students run for state representative and basically give up everything to do this.
Yeah.
And I realized I needed to do this too. And so that's why I'm running. I just feel that there are moments in time when you've got to stand up for what's right. And I want to show my students that they can make a difference in this world by standing up for what they believe in. That's what I'm doing.
And like you just said, this is one of the reasons. And I followed you, and I am impressed and honored to have you with us here today. And like I said, in every interview before, this year is very different than any other election we had. When you vote, and we say, vote like your life depends on it, because truly, not just your life, your kid's life, your family member, your neighbors, everyone's life depends on it. This is a very crucial time. And like you said, you are showing your student that question is the light bulb that give you the courage and push you to do this. And a lot of people don't look at it as service. You are not, you're basically throwing your life, like you just said. You could be just sitting home enjoying whatever everybody else is doing, but rather you are outside meeting with your voters, trying to find a way to correct the problems that we are currently facing. And for that, I want to thank you personally.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Let's just talk about the gun violence. We're going to move on to all the other issues, but you said something that your student said, and it hit me. Why do they have to worry about learning and at the same time safety?
I think this is something people don't really realize right now.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma going on in our schools right now, even without gun shootings happening in the school where your kid goes.
Yeah.
We right now as teachers are doing active shooter drills with kids. And I personally, led some of those drills in my classroom. And I had seniors and juniors who were huddled together in the corner of the classroom, shaking because they were in anticipation of this, active shooter who potentially could come into the room. And it was a drill. But kids are scared. Imagine, this is juniors and seniors. Imagine the trauma that kindergarten kids and first graders are going through. And teachers, I don't know if you realize this, but teachers at my high school last year were trained in Stop the Bleeding. So instead of spending time on in-service to better learn how to be a teacher, they're actually learning how to do compression and take first aid steps to stop bleeding for their kids in the classroom. So I feel like we have turned ourselves into pretzels, accommodating this scourge of gun violence, rather than attack it at its source and look at what is causing this gun violence. For example, I often hear from my Republican colleagues, well, it's a mental health issue. If it's a mental health issue, then number one, why aren't we putting more money into mental health? Number two, why aren't red flag laws enacted, which say that if someone is mentally ill, we take them to court and before a judge, we make the case that this person is mentally ill, and temporarily we can take that gun away from them until they get their mental faculties back. Why are Republicans fighting that? They can't have it both ways. They can't say that it's a mental health problem, but then not take the corrective steps, in my opinion.
Exactly. And it is a double standard when we all noticed, when we talk about the racial issue and systemic racism, when there is a shooting and the shooter is a black guy, it is definitely, some thug or a problem. Then when we have a school shooting, a mass shooting, then it is a mental issue. And to me, it's all mental. If someone felt the need to pick up a gun and shoot someone, and especially if those are kids or elderly, there's a problem. For us, we have to address it. And I agree with you. We need strong leaders. We need laws and regulation that protect the innocent, the victims, not protecting the predators.
Right. And there's
the guns away, right? We're just
very yes. And I'm saying, I'm not even saying take the guns away. I'm saying, for example, why don't we have trigger locks required so that a gun that's in a house, it has to be safely stored so that kids can't get them. Many of these mass shootings have happened because a gun is in the home,
Yeah.
a child, a teenager gets access to the gun. And it's funny because I think people think they can hide a gun and the kids don't know about it. The kids know, they find these things. They have to be required to have a trigger lock. And if they don't have the trigger lock, then they should be held responsible financially and even criminally for the acts that happened from their kid, right? That's one thing. I mean, assault weapons. Why do people need to have a semi-automatic weapon? Now, I was a Marine Corps officer. I got to fire a machine gun, and I say, if you want to fire an automatic weapon and you think you're going to get a big kick out of that, you should join the military. No one in this world needs to have an assault weapon of their own, in my opinion, or to have extended magazines. Why should we have a magazine that holds bullets that has 50 or 100 bullets in it?
Yeah.
That way, they are outgunning the police. They have more capability than the police. Why do we allow that? It makes no sense. And you know what the scary thing is that 70% of most Americans believe in most of these very common sense reforms, like making background checks 100% for every type of weapon. It's only the interjection of these interest groups like the NRA literally bought our politicians and are preventing that kid in the classroom from being safe. And
it's a money thing. They're making money.
They're making money off this. Right. And we have got to stand up and say enough is enough. And unfortunately, for example, I'm running against a guy. He calls himself a common sense moderate Republican. The problem with that is that on the very first day of the legislature, you get to vote for the leadership. And he votes for a leadership that is as conservative as any leadership in Georgia or Alabama or some other southern state. And so you may think you're voting for a moderate by voting for him, but the leadership that he's voting for won't introduce a background bill to the legislature. They won't introduce trigger locks because they are, in my opinion, owned by the NRA. So,
and they're not going to introduce, and people need to look at it this way. It's not just about a normal 15 years old, like you said, or mentally disturbed one, but even in domestic violence situation. I work with the domestic violence in the county, and we have problems when the known abuser who is beating his wife, beat his kids, and they don't do anything to take that gun away from him. And at the end, the kids are the mom and the mom were suffering. And he held them to the gunpoint. We have many cases where it ended in death. So more regulation is what we want. You can have your gun. No one is taking it away, but you have to go through mental health check, criminal background. You have to go through all that. And like Deb said, a trigger lock to protect you, protect your kids. And if you will all look at it this way, it's protection. It is not someone is taking away your rights. That's not the goal.
Well, what's interesting is I think that people who support the Second Amendment say that it's absolutely without restriction. But if you read the case, DC versus Heller, Washington, D.C. case, which said that the D.C. couldn't ban handguns in that district, the Supreme Court said that they weren't saying that there could be no restrictions on the Second Amendment. They were just saying you couldn't make a blanket prohibition on owning weapons.
Yeah.
So common sense regulations are allowed by the Constitution. Just like any other amendment, there's no 100% right to absolute free speech. Just like that, there's no absolute right without parameters for the Second Amendment. And most gun owners, when you look at the history of the NRA, most gun owners, the reason they joined the NRA was that they would get insurance, they would get training, They were not a political movement when they first started. This has only happened in like the last 20 years that this has become such a political organization. And we've got to call them out and say, you know what, enough is enough. Let's look at it from the perspective of the abused woman, the kid in the classroom, the teacher. What are our rights? What are our rights to live in this world? What about the kids in Chester and Philadelphia who are being shot? Why don't we have common sense rules to make sure that those kids are protected?
And that's absolutely very important, and especially the point where you said no one need automatic weapon. That always blew my mind. I don't understand how we allow those kind of guns to be outside for someone with no military background and no military needs. We are not in a war. And again, this is putting, like you said, putting even a huge responsibility on our police officers who are supposed to be focusing on a specific issue. And that's will bring me to police reform. A lot of people, I hate the word defunct because people don't understand it. So I keep repeating this every show. I keep saying reform. Reform mean we are going to allow mental health to come when there is a call for distress. For example, yesterday they were an autistic kid. His mom called in the police. It ended up him being dead. He got shot. If we had social workers, if we had mental health worker in the front talking to this kid, calming him down, de-escalating the situation, then we will not need force, then the police will not be in the bad side. And I think this is, from your background, and let's get back to your background. Can you talk to us about your military background? And thank you for your service, first of all.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I actually feel very strongly about this issue also. Criminal justice was something that I was involved in the Marine Corps. I was the legal officer adjutant for the Camp Pendleton Correctional Facility. It was the place that we would lock up the Marines who were court-martialed, also the Navy sailors who were court-martialed. And so really it was the prison for the military. Okay. And one of the interesting things that I did as part of that job was I volunteered to teach the prisoners in the brig. Many of these kids didn't have a great education. And one of the things that I taught them was about military justice so that they could figure out a way to upgrade their discharge. Many of these kids got an other than honorable discharge for something like a minor drug infraction or from being absent without leave from the military. And there's a process in the military that you have that you can upgrade your discharge so that when you get out of the military, you can get the benefits and the jobs that you get when you get an honorable discharge. And what I found was that's actually how I became interested in teaching, because I found that I really had a knack for teaching people, and I could see the value of connecting with these kids, and most of them were kids who had a minor scrape with the law, and they needed a second chance. Yeah. And I think everyone deserves a second chance, and I think that when I look at the criminal justice system here, the police are not my enemy. They're not my enemy. They're not. Does it need to be reformed? Yes. And there's a number of bills that the Democrats have had up in Harrisburg for a number of years now, that reform the police, that would prevent, for example, chokeholds, that would make sure that we can have, we don't have to have cash for bail. And one of the things you look at is the system itself really penalizes people for being poor. Yeah. That's not right. That is not right. And as a teacher at Conestoga High School, I taught criminal justice my last 5 years there. And what's remarkable to me is that we have so many solutions that are available at our fingertips that we just need to have a push. For example, to me, the best style of policing is community policing. Policemen cannot be everywhere. They just can't. And so if you become part of the community. If the police become part of the community, then they use the community itself to be an ally and help them in doing the kinds of things they need to do to keep everyone safe. When you have police riding around in squad cars and just taking calls and then coming in when there's an incident, then they're seen as an other. They're not seen as part of the community. And so I think that we've got to really push for the idea that police are part of the community and that they are partners with the community, not enemies, And it's funny because you see, like with little kids love the police. They come to school and they do presentations and that kind of thing. We have to get back to a place where the police are not
them, and we look at them as something good, a protector, not a predator.
That they're not a predator. On the other hand, you cannot look away from what's been happening with these incidents. And thank God we have cameras, cell phone cameras or cameras that are showing these incidents. It's unconscionable what's going on in the streets of America. And you cannot deny that there's two different standards for people of color and the rest of us. I never fear that I'm going to be stopped by the police, except for when I warrant it because I'm going too fast in my car. And I think that it's we cannot look away anymore. And I was talking to one of my African American teacher friends not too long ago, and I was telling her honestly how upset I was after Trump was elected.
Yeah.
As a woman, I felt so disrespected by the way that he talked about us. And she said, well, you know what, Deb, maybe now you got a piece of how we feel every single day in this country, the disrespect that we feel, and we're not even doing anything wrong. And I constantly feel like I have to justify who I am as a Black woman in this society. And I think that to me, what I really got out of this was I can no longer, when I see injustice happening, it's not good enough just not to be racist myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be an ally to people who need help speaking up on their behalf. And that's what I intend to do. When we see injustice, when I was a teacher, I used to have kids read, Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't read that, it's a great piece of literature. And what it says is, when we see injustice, it's not good enough to just say, I'm not unjust myself. We have to take action.
Yeah.
It's demanded, that we take action. Look at John Lewis, who just died here not too long ago. I don't know if you read his obituary or he wrote a letter that was released after he died. And one of the things he said in there is, democracy is action. It's action. And too long, we have watched the government go by like it's some TV show.
Yeah.
And we have to take action. And I think that people, and of course, I think the Republicans are misplaying or purposely using this as a propaganda thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see cities burned down. I don't want to see anyone injured. I don't want to defund the police, but I do want to reform the police. I want to reimagine the police.
Yeah.
And I cannot look away anymore while people are being murdered in broad daylight. When someone puts their foot on someone's neck and kills them on live TV, it's not good enough to say it's just one bad apple. There's something systemically wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah. If there is more than one bad apple and you leave them in the back, they're gonna rot in the rest. And this is not, like you said, not good enough to keep saying one bad apple. And you said a very, very important point earlier, and I am going to have it repeated. I'm going to cut that area and share it with as many people as we can, because we cannot stand and watch and injustice like happening right in front of our eyes. We cannot just sit. And it just surprised me that so many people can actually look and see a murder happening in front of their eye and try to justify that and look for dirt and see, oh, he was this, he was that. I don't care if he is a criminal, and that's not the case here. But even if that was the case, we have a legal system for a reason.
Yes. Yeah.
Judges, juries, and we cannot have people running a street law and order kind of show, which that how we feel to me. It's just a very bad show that we are in, and we really hopefully end it soon by voting. And Deb, you are an amazing person, and you truly bring hope to me personally. I'm not speaking to everyone. We
Really
have
appreciate
people
that.
now and joining. Thank you all for listening, but I'm sure you all agree with what I'm just saying. You are giving me hope, because when I look at a teacher and I see my kids' future, I have two girls and a son. And when I see a Black man being murdered every day, all I feel if just replace that face with my own son or daughter's face. And like you said, as a white person, it's not good enough to feel bad. It's not good enough to say I'm not racist. You have to be an ally. You have to do something good. You don't have to feel what we feel, but understand it and listen to people's pain. And that's what makes us human. And I don't know about you all out there listening to us right now, but the past 4 years brought the ugliest part of our country, and I don't want this to continue. So if you truly are fed up and you feel like this is dehumanizing, this is like you said, I'm sorry, I have to go back to one thing before I let you talk. As a woman myself, uh, and I had this conversation with a Trump supporter today on my Facebook page. I said, I am especially surprised when I see a woman supporting Trump after grab him by the pee, after every laws and regulation he's trying to change to put us not 100, 400 years back, to put women back and look at women as sex objects and look at women as someone who can take the sexual assault. And he said that. So you can't come and say this is fake media. He said it. He said if you cannot take basically the sexual assault, then find another job. You're not got. He said that.
Well, I hear you. And, as a teacher, I mean, the Parkland shooting precipitated me running, but, Trump himself is such a motivating factor for me, because as a teacher who's supposed to set the example in my classroom, who's supposed to protect kids, no matter their race, their sex, their gender, their ethnic origin, their religion, to stand in front of kids. And the day after he was elected, this is a true story. I had Muslim kids come in my classroom crying. I had transgender kids crying. I had gay kids crying, because for the first time, Hispanic kids being told to go back to Mexico, even though they're US citizens. The first time I'd seen mass bullying in Conestoga, kids thrown up against lockers, right? Because I think kids felt empowered by this horrible acting president who really respected no norms. And, what happened to me was, talking about it, and the kids were really emboldened early on in 2016, 2017, when Trump took office. Kids would outwardly say things in class that just echoed the racist, horrible stuff that he was saying, in the news. And this one day, one of the kids was talking about the Muslim ban. And I had a Muslim senior girl in my class named Sarah, and she started crying her eyes out. And I stood there, and, we're not supposed to take political positions as a teacher. And I said, you know what? All right, kids, this is it. If President Trump says something in my classroom that I would suspend you for or write you up in our code of conduct, I'm going to call him out on that. And him banning Muslims in this country is unconscionable. And I went down to the principal after class and I said, I just want to let you know, I am not going to accept something that I wouldn't allow in a 9th grade student in my classroom to be acceptable in my classroom as a teacher. And for the rest of my teaching career, which was the next 3 years, anytime he said something that was racist or sexist or xenophobic, I called him out on that. And I just think we've accepted, I don't understand what's happened to the country. We've accepted his horrific
behavior
and just made it more and more normal. We need more people saying, this is not right. It's not right. This is going to be a guy that you want your kids to look up to?
Yeah.
I mean, he's the president of the United States and he's saying these horrific things. It's not acceptable.
And those are one of the things I said a lot. He's a big bully. This has had nothing to do with Republican, and I respect a lot of the Republican that took a stand and went against him, because this should stand not just against the Democratic Party's ethics and agenda and campaign and everything, but it should stand against any party's beliefs. And I believe that I might disagree with someone as being a Republican, but that's disagreement in simple things, how to do this, and if I am conservative, they're conservative, I'm liberal, but the basic human being, just being a decent person, not making fun of handicap. What did that look in your classroom? By the way, how did that look when he made fun of the reporter?
I mean, this is what kills me here, is that we spend so much time as teachers trying to bring kids together, to see past disabilities, to see the real person, to talk about religion as something that transcends people, that it's not something that differentiates us, that makes us a rich, diverse environment. And then for him to denigrate people, I don't understand how anybody who is of a group that's other than a white male Protestant,
yeah,
I don't understand how they can support him. I just don't. I have a very hard time with this, to be honest with you. It's not a political thing. It's a human rights.
Thank you. And that's what I keep saying. It's not political. It's basically decency. You are a teacher. We look up to the leaders. And like you said, the student should look up to you. Should look up to their teachers. They should look up to the police officers who are not kneeling on someone. They should look up to the president, who is not spreading hate and fear and division. And it is not just about the president, but if we look at most of the elected officials, and again, voting for the president is very important, but you guys have to vote for your local offices. You have to vote for your representative, because, Deb is the one that's going to make changes in your district.
Yes.
We talk about Delaware, 168. She's the one going to be fighting for that specific district. You vote for her, then you know that she is going to make major changes. And that's the main reason for us to sit here, and all of you to sit with us and listen, so you can hear about Deb and what she's all about. And if you believe of decency, if you believe that she will be a good candidate, then vote. If you need more information, you can go on her website, you can go on her Facebook page, you can listen to her, contact her, and get to know who she is. But voting for your local offices is very important. And can you just give us other issues that you are going to address in your district?
Well, I mean, another issue that's really important in this district is the Mariner East pipeline. Pumps gas through this district, and it comes from northeastern Pennsylvania, and it brings the gas through Middletown Township and Thornbury and Edgemont, and it goes down to Marcus Hook. And it doesn't carry gas that's going to heat your home. It carries gas that's going down to a tanker truck in Marcus Hook that's going to be shipped to Europe to make plastic, single-use plastic. And it's so bad. I mean, I can't even tell you how bad this is. If you walk this pipeline, you will see that it has been put in the backyards of people's homes all up and down this district. And this is very highly pressurized gas that's explosive. And Sunoco and Energy Transfer are the companies that are putting this pipeline through. And they have not even given the residents a safety plan about what to do if there's a leak or a fire or an explosion. And this pipeline goes by nursing homes, it goes by children's schools, and and we have seen already some leaks and some sinkholes in this pipeline, and the residents don't know what to do.
Mhm.
They're so worried. They have been able to get very few answers from Sunoco about the safety of this pipeline, and it has ruined people's water. I've been helping a woman in Edgemont whose water has been ruined with drilling fluid, and she has to drill a new well. This is unbelievable. I've been dealing with a woman who's 89 years old, who was told it would be 3 weeks to put this pipeline in her backyard, and instead, 3 years later, they're still constructing the pipeline. They've taken down most of her apple orchard, and they block her in so that the only way that she can get out of her house is through a dirt road. So
Unbelievable.
we have to do better with the environment. You know, one of the problems that we have is that this gas, you know, it's part of the whole fracking industry in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can see what's going on out in California with climate change. This is real. We are not experiencing, you know, what they're going through there, but we have been experiencing hurricanes and tornadoes at a degree that we've never seen before. So this local issue is reflective of a national issue and an international issue of climate change. You know what? I probably won't be all that affected with this in my lifetime, but your kids will. You know, and my son will, and I don't want to leave a world that we have ruined. You know, with you know, decimating the earth, fracking this gas, taking out and, you know, all this money and using it, and leaving them with an uninhabitable earth. We have to address this, and it's another unconscionable thing that the Trump administration has done is take us out of the Paris Accord and really ignore, not just ignore, but take away the regulations that regulate this gas industry. We have to segue over to alternative energy, which honestly could be a boom for Pennsylvania and could create great new jobs in wind and solar. I mean, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we being forward looking? Transition out of this, you know, the carbon-based fuels, go to new energy. And that's something that we have to do and that is not going to happen if you vote for the Republican legislature. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's one of the issue that people need to think about. The science, they don't use logic when you talk to a Trump supporter, for example, and science is fake news. I mean, we're not like 2 years old here. Like everybody is an adult. They have access to research the information. Do not just believe what I say or Deb say or anybody else for that matter. Learn it for yourself. Know the facts. Don't just hear this is bad and take it and go.
Well, I mean, you are right. I mean, what's really disconcerting about this is the whole basis for how we make decisions in government.
Yeah.
Everyone's, you know, the old saying is everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts.
Yeah.
And we have reams and reams and reams of information saying that we are on the precipice of a climate disaster. And I think if you follow what's going on in California and Washington and Oregon right now, all 3 states are on fire.
Yeah.
And you know, people are being burned to death right now as we speak. I don't want to be too graphic about this, but this is what's going on. And we have to look at this and say, this is this is not just worrisome. This is really unbelievable that we're standing here saying that climate change isn't going on. When are we going to realize and wake up? This is a national disaster that's ongoing right now. And meanwhile, we're still arguing over whether it even exists.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the main issue, and it's not just with the environment and denying global warming. Denying a problem doesn't make it go away. Just like this is not just rings of lies, I can say, about Corona, about any disaster that happened to this country. We cannot solve it by lying our way out. And that's what it's been happening for the past 4 years. And enough is enough, like you said. Enough.
It is. And, and it's funny because, I had both Republican and Democratic kids in my classroom. And I had some of the smartest kids, honestly, in the country, Conestoga High School, where I taught, brilliant science-oriented kids who then went to great universities like MIT and Stanford and Caltech. And I think this is an issue that Democrats can win on because Republican kids they're not dumb. They know the science.
Yeah.
And a fact is a fact is a fact. And if the country's on fire and we see the ice caps melting, something's going on here, and we have enough data. And you don't have to be a Democrat to realize that we've got to take action here. So.
But again, it comes to teaching those children. There is homes that live in denial. People are listening to, for example, the leader, and who's supposed to lead, not lead us away.
Yes. I mean, I think you've got a great, not to interrupt you here, but
you're not, go for it.
Leadership for me is one of the things, as someone who was in the military and I was a Marine Corps captain, something that I really pride myself on. And it's one of the reasons I'm running is we need strong leadership.
Yeah.
You have seen, in my opinion, the worst leadership ever in the history of the presidency right now with the Trump administration. Not only is he not a leader, he's the antithesis of a leader. He cares about himself first. Think about this. He gets tested every single day himself. But yet I tried to get a test a couple of weeks ago from my doctor, and he told me unless I had symptoms, I couldn't get a test. And so when he stands up there and lies about testing being available, when he talks about not having to wear a mask because it's an imposition on your freedom.
Yeah.
This would be like during World War II, when people used to have to pull their blinds down to make sure there was no light so enemy aircraft wouldn't bomb our towns.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people during World War II saying, you know what, it's my right to leave my shade open and let the light in because I want to.
Yeah.
When we don't wear a mask, when we don't care enough about the guy next to us, we're helping to kill them. And to have a president who does exactly the opposite, instead of pulling us all together and getting us on the same team, he works against that. He works against the governor of Pennsylvania, the governor of Michigan, and the governor of California. I've never seen anything like this. And then to have people still support him, after we find out that he knew that 180,000 people would be killed if they didn't wear masks. And he knew it was airborne. I just don't understand how people can justify voting for this guy.
Yeah.
He's not just a bad leader. He's an awful leader.
And a problematic. It will continue being a problem until we take it from the roots. And the same way we look at any virus we had before, and we know that racism is a virus, we know this person is a virus too. And spreading that hate and lies and making people dumb, basically. And I just want to go back to where you said the student or your student are smart, and you can talk to them with science and logic.
Right.
That's if they have a good teacher like you. And I'm not just saying that because you're here with us, but I know you would time and effort and taught them facts. But how would it be if we have a teacher like now, one of the people running for government, they think like the QAnon, or think about the pandemic as a hoax, or think about major issue. Like, for example, we have a local running here for Congress, and he's been in office for a couple of years. Scott Barry, he's an awful person. And he keeps saying that systemic racism does not exist. I mean, when you have those people talking about those days in and day out, and having teacher who are putting wrong information, then we're going to create, and have parents who are giving wrong information, we're going to create a very bad environment. And you know,
Yeah.
I just want you to talk about the.
Well, I mean, one of the things you're really talking about here is that how do we get past this polarization that we see in the country? And,
Mhm.
what right after the 2016 election, I was so worried, and I told you about all the bullying. I was so worried about this that there's a group called Better Angels, and their mission is to bring Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals together to transcend that. So I actually signed up for this training, and I actually brought them into school, and I brought 12 Republican parents together with 12 Democratic parents,
Mhm.
and I put them in a room and we filmed them in front of a group of kids. And the idea here was to get them talking to each other about what they both believe in and what was most important to them. And I won't say that we solved the whole problem of polarization in the United States, but what we did do is we got the other side to listen.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you, for example, here was a revelation. Republican parents were shocked when the Democratic parents said, the reason we criticize America is because we want to make it better.
Mhm.
And most of the Republican parents said, wow, that's really, we just thought you didn't like America. We thought you hated America. And the Democratic parents said, no, we think that we can always get better.
Mhm.
And so when we criticize, it's not because we don't love the country. It's because we want the country to be the best country it can be. And so, and then I will say, from the Republican side, I heard one of the Republican parents was an immigrant. He was a Chinese man who had come over to the country 20 years ago. And
Mhm.
I get very angry when I see the Democrats advocating for free stuff to go to people, because I feel like I came with nothing. I worked really hard. I started a business. I work 80 hours a week. And so I think people ought to work as hard as I do. And so, we had this really good dialogue.
Yeah.
You know what? I think that's the way we're going to get past all this polarization is we have to do this one person at a time. It's not going to be easy. We have to see that, people themselves aren't the enemy. They may be misinformed,
Yeah.
and I found this. I've been making thousands of phone calls, and I've talked to Republicans who are registered Republicans, and I would consider themselves to be, they would maybe moderate.
Mhm.
I've been able to have really good conversations, and they see that I'm not a devil because I'm a Democrat. They see that I don't have horns.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and,
unfortunate. Like, people
and
present this
that
way.
we have some common ground here, right? And that they know that I'm trying to work for their best interest.
Yeah.
And I think that's this is not an easy solution, but if I were someone in your audience, I would make it your mission to find one person who may be of the opposite political party and have dinner with them and
Yeah.
just talk. And obviously, if they're too far right, maybe you can't do it. But someone who's just a regular person who has different beliefs, and try one person at a time. I did that with my next door neighbors here, and we became very good friends. And he's even contributed to my campaign. So, so you know what? I think you can make friends if you treat people decently and you talk from a personal level. I think,
to find what is common
yeah,
between,
yes,
because surprisingly, there is a lot of common, beliefs between.
yes,
Oh, we might have. I'm not talking about the ones who are like
yeah,
not even
sure,
who are thinking, but a normal person who is undecided or just barely, like the guy who is thinking that free stuff, Democrats are giving free stuff. If we explain to him, I am a business woman myself, and I don't mind. I pay a lot of taxes, but I am happily giving that because, yes, I did work hard for where I am right now, but someone is unfortunate, not like me. I was fortunate enough to get to where I am right now. If I can help that person, it is
right,
not going to hurt me. If
right,
you go bankrupt, then yes,
right,
don't do it. But you can. I mean, even if you just talk to them about if they're a religious person, what the Bible said. If they're Christian, if they're Muslim, tell them what the Quran said.
right,
Like try to find that common ground between that person and use it.
yeah. And like I'm not naive enough to think that you can change everyone's mind, but you know what? If you change a few people's minds, you know what? That's a good thing.
Try. I mean, one person at a time, like you said, and even if you just and that's why I think we are doing more discussions this year because a lot of people need to know that it is not okay to look at someone killed in front of you and feel nothing. It is not okay to have someone who is supposed to be your role model and your kid's role model to make fun of someone is handicapped or tell people it's okay to touch women and grab them from anywhere you want because simply you're a man and you can.
Right.
Not okay to do that, and it's not okay to say. And one thing that the kid with the AR-15 who went and shot two protesters, to me, he's a terrorist,
Right.
and he's a murderer, and he is not a kid because he know that's a premeditated murder. You drove from a different city for
Yeah.
the president and other local official to call him a hero. That was it for me.
Right.
So
I
many.
mean, I think that so many people I know. The one good thing about Donald Trump is that he has motivated civic engagement in this country. Like I can I could tell you stories of people who are helping me right now. I have there's a thing called, I don't know if you've heard of, have you heard of Sister District at all?
Yes.
So I have sister districts around the country who are helping me in New Jersey, in Virginia, in New York, in California, who are making phone calls for me and raising money for me.
And hopefully Pennsylvania will join that today. Are you listening, my Pennsylvania listeners?
Right. Well, and that's the thing is that, and you know what? I've been getting, the other day I got 750 contributions to my campaign, and most of them, the average contribution was $5. So
Yeah.
I feel like Bernie Sanders because I'm getting these contributions. But what I think one thing that people should realize this year is you can make a difference,
Yeah.
especially at my level, at the state house level.
Yeah.
A very small contribution is so appreciated and makes such a difference because together we can counter the power of corporate donations.
Mhm.
I would say in general, normally the Republicans get way bigger contributions than the Democrats get. They can get, a $50,000 or $100,000 contribution. But you know what? If we get thousands of people giving $5 contributions, we saw with Bernie Sanders, you
Yeah.
could raise millions of dollars. And until we have campaign finance reform, this is what you can do. Give $5. Help me make some phone calls. Register your neighbor to vote. All these little things make a difference.
Talk, share. If you're listening to this now, make sure you share. Make sure you mention that name to your neighbor, to anyone that live in that district. You don't have to physically live there. I don't live in that district, but I will support her. I will talk to all my friends, my family, anyone that live in that area, so they can do something. And there is on her website, which I posted on the top of this video, and I'm going to post later on also, it has a link to her page where you can click on the top right. It will say donate, and you can donate anything. It is very easy. It's Act Blue, and you put your card number. It can even save your card number, and you can do a monthly donation of 5 or whatever. There is few months left, so I hope you can do more than that because there is not a lot of time left. Also,
Every little bit's great.
phone calls. There is a volunteer button that you can click and volunteer, or contact them, contact their campaign, and ask what you can do. Nothing is too small, and especially now. And you still have time. This is mid-September. We still have a whole, almost 51 days left?
50 days. And you know what? Every time you help me or another state representative candidate, you're helping Joe Biden.
Yes.
Because the only way that we're going to win this thing, Pennsylvania is still very close.
Yes.
It's a matter of helping to get, we have enough Democratic votes. We have to get them to the polls or get them to vote by mail. And that's how we're going to win this election.
We have to close the gap. And again, vote this year like your life, your children's life, your grandkids, your neighbor, everybody that you care about lives depend on it, because it truly does. And Deb, I want you to just summarize. I know a lot of people are still watching, and hopefully, later on people would come and listen from the beginning. Once we finish this video, you will be able to go back and listen from the beginning, and please do share that video with everyone that live in that district. But if you don't mind, just giving people a not a summarization, a long summarization of what is your campaign about and why should they vote for you?
I mean, I just got to say that I'll just tell you about my last day as a teacher at Conestoga. Teaching was the joy of my life. I mean, I went to work every day and I loved my job. So for me to leave teaching to do something else, it had to be a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to tell kids on my last day of teaching why I was leaving the job that I loved. And as I mentioned to you before, I had them reread Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. And, it speaks to the idea of injustice and the fact that we as a people can only get better and be a better country if we take action when we see things that are not right. And I just see so many things that are not right. I see a country that's being led by a guy who openly discriminates against African-American people and women and disabled people, who has divided us from our allies, who has spoken out against the military, being suckers and losers.
Mm-hmm.
And, we are headed in the wrong direction right now as a country. We need someone who's going to bring the country together, to knit our community back together. Our community is damaged right now. And I'm talking both at the local, the state, and the national level. We need people like me because, when I was a Marine Corps officer and they told me to get a job done, I didn't care whether you were a Democrat or a Republican. I just got the job done. And that's the kind of person that I am. I'm not doing this because my lifelong wish was to be a politician. It wasn't. But I cannot stand by one more minute and see this country headed in such an awful direction. And democracy itself, and I'm not being over the top here, is on the line. And that's why I'm running. So a vote for me is a vote to restore democracy in this country and to establish a leadership that's going to bring us together instead of try to divide us.
And this is not the time to stand this one out. To everyone that is listening to us right now, if you are registered to vote, check with your neighbor, your family, make sure they all are registered to vote. We have until October 19, true? Am I correct?
Yes, I think that's right. And we cannot, please don't sit on the sideline. You have to see the contrasts here. This is not even an easy call, right? You can see, in my mind, this is headed in the right direction versus headed in the wrong direction. So pull the vote for Democrats up and down the ticket, because we're going to put us back on the right path.
And let's talk about, since you brought in voting this year, it's different. You cannot vote just straight one party. And can you explain to
Yeah,
me
so
what they used to do?
it used to be no matter what county you were in Pennsylvania, you could either push a button and vote straight party ticket for either Republicans or Democrats, or you could just hit one circle in and vote for that party. But as of January, in return for being able to vote by mail, the governor agreed with the Republicans who wanted this to take away straight party voting.
Yeah.
My biggest fear is that people will vote for Joe Biden and then say, I don't know these other people, and not vote. Don't do that, right? We cannot change the country if you only vote for the president. The president needs help. He needs me, and he needs other Democratic candidates to help him up and down the ticket. So please vote for all of us. Vote Democratic up and down.
And read, learn, and this is why we're doing this, so you can know about Deb and learn about her campaign and support her. So when you go on that voting booth, you look and you see Deb's name, you check that name, and you go and look at all. And like you said, it is scary because a lot of people might not know the names and they might just randomly click, but it will have a D or an R. It will tell you who is this person, what is the party that they're affiliated with, but also learn. This is a chance for all of you. There is few names. I'm sharing all the names going down by counties, and I'm putting that on my page. You can look at that. You can also go to pavoteblue.com. I believe I will post that link also. You can look and find your district and find those names. Make yourself familiar with them. Know about them. Check their website. It's simple. About us, it gives you information. Learn about your candidates and vote. The most important thing is to vote.
That's
vote,
right.
vote. Like your life depends on it, because it does. And I cannot say this enough. Deb, before we end this, and I really wish if we can have 5 more hours with you. Talking to you is so easy and informative, and there is so many issues I know that we can discuss. And I'm sure won't be the end. After you get elected, and I'm going to say if, I'm going to say when you get elected, after that, we can talk, and you will have your platform, and you will be able to talk to people about all those issues that you're passionate about.
I will.
Until then, I want to really thank you for giving us the time and being here with us. And if there is one last word that you want our listener to hear from you, what that would be?
Well, I just want to echo what you were saying about voting. You know, as a former Marine Corps officer, having served with people who died serving their country, I think it's not too much to ask as an American citizen that on one day a year that we take the time to go to the polls, research who's on the ballot, and vote, because people have died guaranteeing us this right to vote, and we shouldn't let them down by staying home.
You are absolutely right. Thank you very much, Deb, and thank you for your service. Thank you for everything that you're doing and you did for our kids, and you will continue to do for your district and for all of us.
Thanks so much.
For our listeners, thank you for joining. Please share. Remember to go to Deb's website, Facebook page, like it, go to her page, donate, volunteer, do something. And in order for us, like I said, to be the change in this world, or to make a difference in this world, we have to do something. So even if you just want to vote from your couch, there is voting by mail, there is absentee ballots, but make sure you follow that. Make sure you drop it so you can free up the mail, and so you can make sure that your vote did count. And if you can vote in person, please do that. Until then, you guys stay safe and vote. Good night.